And welcome back to Newsroom Live. You're looking at a live picture of New York City, and we're going to get right to the fight for City Hall. I'm Sharon Crowley reporting to you from the Fox 5 Newsroom here in New York City, and it is a busy night. I know I always say that, but this is a jam-packed show. And the New York City mayor's race has dominated the national news, the local news. It's on everyone's mind, and everyone has an opinion. And here in New York, that's millions of people. Yes, that's right. So first, let's see how the candidates are, what they were doing in these final days. Let's look at the front runner, Democrat Zohran Mamdani, campaigning today. He got some endorsement from the bodega owners. They're backing him up. Possibly a little bit unexpected. He ordered a bacon, egg, and cheese and then said that would stand for something about bringing the affordability back to this city instead. Let's hear what he had to say on the campaign trail today.
Just before, we were having a conversation about the way that streamlining regulations could assist bodega owners in the work that they do, about taking on some of the warehouse logistics issues, and also understanding the role that the city has to play in not being a burden on these same small businesses, but rather being a support.
All right, let's take a look and see what Andrew Cuomo, former New York governor, who is running as an independent in this campaign and is about 10 percentage points behind Mamdani in the poll. He is hoping to close the gap. We've heard from a lot of high-profile, powerful politicians throwing their support right in the 11th hour behind Cuomo. We're also seeing new ads coming out. So we'll see. He's really hoping to close the gap between him and Mamdani in just the next couple of days. We're going to find out if that's even possible. We're going to look at the polling numbers. But first, let's hear what Cuomo had to say.
I think there's going to be a big turnout because he frightens New Yorkers. He frightens New Yorkers, and he is dangerously inexperienced. 8.5 million people live in this city. Who wants to trust him with the leadership of New York City? You now get down to the last week. They're starting to focus. They're starting to learn who Zohran really is, and what he has said and what he stands for and what the Democratic Socialist agenda is all about and how unqualified he is.
All right. And now one more for you. Republican Curtis Sliwa also campaigning hard today, refusing pressure from all sides to drop out. He's a distant third in this race, but there is still pressure on him to get out of the race, and he is refusing to do so. So we'll see. Here's what he had to say.
But I would caution Ina that if somebody veers away from the Republican line to try to find Cuomo in that maze, ain't easy to find them. Are they going to return and then continue to vote Republicans? And I noticed how she begged people, please return to the Republican line. That's not reality. That's fantasy. But hey, I depend on more than just Republicans. I have independents. I have moderate Democrats.
Is Curtis Sliwa, former founder of the Guardian Angels, on the campaign trail today. All right, joining me to break it all down now, Trip Yang, political Democratic strategist extraordinaire and a frequent friend to Fox 5. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Sharon. I could not think of a better use of a Wednesday night than to be here talking politics with you.
That's right. And the boss bought us pizza to keep us going because there were 18 endings on Monday night, which means our 10 o'clock news was actually closer to Good Day New York. Yes, that's right. I hope you stayed up with us. So, Trip, let's talk right away about this race. Everyone today is talking about the 10-point spread. Can Cuomo make it up before Election Day and get any closer, close that gap?
So this is a great question. Look, you're absolutely right. Earlier, Sharon, 8.6 million New Yorkers, the math tells me we got 35 million opinions in this town. So everyone's got something to say about this race. What I'll say is that Cuomo has a little bit of positives to point to. His gap, which used to be around 15 to 18 points, is now only about 10 points. Two public polls, including the Q poll, as us political insiders often call it, has him down 10 points. It seems to be that he's picking up the vast majority of Eric Adams supporters who has endorsed him recently, as well as he is slowly but surely getting a number of Republican voters to support him. The Republican Party, at least on the voter level, there is some slippage from Curtis Sliwa's support. It is benefiting Andrew Cuomo. But, and I'll say this, if you are Zohran Mamdani, there are two main reasons why you have to feel really excited about this. One is that the vast majority of your voters actually feel really excited to vote for you. In politics, it's much, much better for your voters to feel excited about something than to vote against something. Many Cuomo supporters in the Q poll say they're motivated primarily to vote against Mamdani. And the other reason that it helps Zohran Mamdani is that Curtis Sliwa, he refuses to get out of this race. He memorably said he'd rather be tortured to death. His words, not mine. And so it does not appear like Curtis Sliwa is going to get out of the race. And that 11, 12, 13 points that Sliwa commands is really hurting Andrew Cuomo.
So I have so many questions from what you just said, a lot to unpack there. First of all, let's bring up tonight, we heard Bloomberg endorsing Cuomo begrudgingly or in the 11th hour. And there's been a couple of those, even Lawler this morning on the radio. And I'm going to be polite because I like to be polite when possible. I would just say that the sentiment is he's the lesser of two evils. There's been other things that they've said about Cuomo, but that's what they're saying when these Republicans or never Cuomo voters are saying, you know what, we're going to pick him. How do you think that's playing? And I also want to ask about turnout because we're seeing it in people that are over the age of 50, which tends to favor Cuomo. Yeah,
absolutely. So if New York politics was a high school prom, Andrew Cuomo would never be voted the prom king. Let me tell you that. Second of all, when you look at the voting numbers so far, there are positive signs for both candidates.
Okay.
There is really high voting turnout in very progressive Park Slope. That was a Mamdani stronghold. It remains a Mamdani stronghold. However, right here on the Upper East Side, fairly high income, pretty politically moderate. Cuomo stronghold in the primary. Still, I would argue, leans Cuomo in a general election. Also had really high turnout. So both candidates had positives to point to. You're absolutely right, Sharon.
I like when you say that.
Well, it is often true. But a lot of times, certainly in this general election, voters aged 55 and older, that is a demographic that Cuomo is strong on. They had really strong turnout during early vote on Saturday and Sunday. However, I will say this, the majority of all registered voters in New York City are registered Democrats.
Right, 6-1, right?
Right, exactly. And so that obviously benefits Mamdani. And I'll also say this, some of the most progressive, youngest areas that I anticipate Mamdani to win by 40, 50 points, Astoria, Queens, Bushwick, Greenpoint, Brooklyn, these areas, I would say, they have seen their early vote numbers trickle upwards. So there are encouraging signs for both candidates.
So let's talk a little bit about Mamdani. We've talked a little bit about Cuomo. His populist message of affordability really generated so much support, not to mention his TikTok videos. But really, that is an issue that I think the Democratic Party maybe should be paying attention to, or anybody who wants to win in the midterms of the next election. I mean, that is what is generating so much of his favorability. One could argue whether or not he's able to deliver on those promises. That's a whole nother conversation. However, that is what is making him so gain all this traction, don't you say?
I would say the appeal of Zohran Mamdani, some of it you can replicate, some of it you cannot. What is unique about Zohran is that he is very charismatic, charming, quick on his feet. Look, that is not something that everyone can be, obviously. However, what you can replicate from him, and I say this as a lifelong Democrat, what Democrats nationally can replicate is he has an unyielding discipline about sticking to the strongest message. In this case, it's addressing the cost of living. No matter what question at the debates is thrown at Zohran, he always goes back to, I am doing this because it'll make life easier for New Yorkers to live in. And so that is something that Zohran, that is a strength of Zohran's that is absolutely replicable.
So let's talk a little bit about Republican Curtis Sliwa here. There has been pressure really since the primary for him to drop out, make this a three-man, then a two-man race in order to give Cuomo an edge at trying to beat Mamdani. You told me that, he's still, while he's a distant third, he's got about 11 percentage points that could possibly go toward Cuomo, perhaps if he were to stand up there and say, please please throw my supporters toward Cuomo. I don't know. What do you say? Is he going to be the spoiler in this race?
It certainly looks that way. Curtis Sliwa, of course, ran for mayor last time 4 years ago as Republican nominee. He got about 30% in a one-on-one against Eric Adams, who was ironically the Democratic nominee 4 years ago. This time around, much of Sliwa's support is going to Cuomo. Look, he's got some diehards, but I'd be a little bit worried if you're Sliwa. The reason why is that increasingly Republican elected officials in New York City, I know there's not many of them, but for those that do exist, such as Brooklyn council member on the Republican side, Inna Vernikov, they have switched their endorsements from Sliwa to Cuomo. In politics, if you work in politics professionally, it is viewed that if you endorse someone, your endorsement is your bond. You're supposed to keep it, even if your candidate is 40 points down. For someone to switch their endorsements before the end of election night in our business professionally is a very, very rare occurrence. That is a sign of worry for Curtis Sliwa.
Interesting. So do you think, I want you to get that crystal ball out now, Trip, and tell me, do you think this is going to be the largest turnout in years on Tuesday when New Yorkers go to the polls?
Look, right now we're tracking towards over 1.5 million New Yorkers turning out, which is a very high number for a local New York election. Right now, during early vote, we are over 50% of where the presidential election was last November. Now, usually a presidential election has 3 to 4 times the turnout of a local mayor's race. For a mayor's race to be over 50%, that is really high turnout for a local race.
So I have another question. I'm not going to use the word bellwether because it's overused, and Natasha told me what it actually means. You can Google it at home. Does this indicate the winner of the mayor's race in New York City? Will that tell us something? For example, the direction of the Democratic Party, how the midterms are going to turn out. What will it tell us, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So we always can learn a lot from Natasha. I'll just say that. Let's get that out of the way.
That's right.
But look, to elaborate on your point here, there are a lot of signs about this mayor's race and how it projects nationally. Let's talk about the Democratic Party first.
Yeah.
If Mamdani wins, it shows that momentum really matters. He has created an infrastructure, a movement for himself, where very few of the Democratic leaders endorsed him. But because he's generated so much momentum as a Democratic nominee now, folks like Governor Kathy Hochul, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries have endorsed him, even if it comes with caveats. It shows that momentum matters. And look, Democratic voters, they do not care if you call yourself a Democratic socialist. The labels don't matter. You can call yourself a socialist, a moderate, a progressive. What matters is that voters need to feel like they can trust you to deliver for them. That's what Mamdani is showing. If he wins, that is absolutely an affirmation for his style of politics. On the Republican side, look, the Republicans don't have a shot. They have no prayer in this race. It's between a Democrat versus a Democrat turned independent. But if Mamdani is going to be the mayor, national Republicans are going to use this as an opportunity to say, look, the Democratic Party has been taken over by socialists. They want to tax and spend liberally. They are going to use Mamdani as a foil.
All right. Trip Yang, I'm going to leave it there with you. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be seeing you again real soon, so I appreciate you being with us. And listen, we're working on so many stories for the newscast tonight. Linda Schmitz following Melissa's path. We'll have an update on the news tonight. Again, Channel 9 at 10 o'clock and then Channel 5 after the World Series game. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to close with a live picture of the United States Capitol. Why? Because those SNAP benefits run out soon. And guess what? People are going to suffer if they don't get a deal in Washington. Let's hope they do.